I woke up in my Prague hotel room to my phone buzzing like an angry wasp. 6 a.m. local time, and my stomach was already churning before I even opened my eyes. The messages kept coming one after another, that urgent ping that means something terrible has happened. I grabbed my phone with shaking fingers and saw the hotel manager's frantic texts about my company credit card being declined at checkout yesterday. Then I saw Derek's email sent just 20 minutes ago. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Figure out your own way home. You're no longer our problem. I stared at those words until they blurred together. Just 12 hours earlier, I had been representing Pinnacle Systems at the biggest international trade conference of my career, successfully closing a $12 million contract with Bohemia Industrial. Now I was stranded 4,000 miles from home, with no company support, no flight, and no explanation. My hands wouldn't stop trembling as I called the Chicago office. The familiar ringtone felt foreign now, like reaching across an impossible distance. Stephanie, Derek's assistant, answered with her usual crisp efficiency, but her tone turned arctic when she recognized my voice. "Marion, your termination is effective immediately. Security has already cleared out your desk. Your access badges have been deactivated." She delivered this information like she was reading the weather forecast, completely detached from the fact that she was describing the destruction of my life. I had joined Pinnacle Systems 3 years ago, fresh from completing my MBA at Northwestern University, with a focus on international business development. The position was everything I had dreamed of during those grueling 2 years of graduate school. Derek had personally recruited me, flying to Chicago to take me to dinner at the Palmer House, painting a picture of unlimited growth potential and promising me a partnership track within 5 years. I believed every word he said. I had built Pinnacle's entire European expansion strategy from scratch, working 70-hour weeks, turning down lucrative offers from competitors because I believed in the vision Derek and I had created together. This Prague trip was my brainchild, the culmination of 18 months of research identifying the untapped potential in Eastern European markets. I had sacrificed relationships, missed family holidays, and poured every ounce of my professional soul into making this expansion successful. The hotel manager, Jindrik, arrived at my door within minutes, his weathered face creased with concern and barely concealed frustration. He spoke excellent English with a gentle Czech accent that would have been charming under different circumstances. "Miss Marion, I am very sorry, but your company credit card shows account closed status. The payment for 4 nights, it is $2,800. We need resolution today." His apologetic tone couldn't mask the underlying message that I was running out of time to figure this out. I tried my personal credit cards, knowing before I even swiped them that they were maxed out from the security deposit on my new Chicago apartment just last month. The declining balance notifications felt like tiny slaps across my face. I called Patricia in Human Resources, desperate for any explanation that would make sense of this nightmare. Patricia had always been professional but warm, and now she sounded genuinely uncomfortable delivering the devastating news. "Marion, Derek told the board that you were making unauthorized expenses and going rogue with client relationships. He said you were freelancing deals without proper approval and damaging our company relationships with unprofessional behavior." Her voice grew quieter with each word, as if she knew how absurd it sounded. Yesterday's contract signing with Bohemia Industrial was supposedly unsanctioned. Derek presented it to the board as you exceeding your authority and potentially exposing the company to legal liability. The absurdity of it hit me like a physical blow. The Bohemia Industrial deal was the result of months of careful negotiation, countless email chains with Derek's direct approval, and detailed presentations to the executive team. Every step had been documented, authorized, and celebrated. Derek had personally congratulated me via email just yesterday morning, calling it a career-defining achievement for both of us. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda, my former colleague in the marketing department. "Marion, Derek has been planning this for months. He copied all your client files, your research, your contact database last week when you were preparing for Prague. He told everyone you were becoming unreliable and that he needed backup access to protect client relationships. I tried to warn you, but you had already left for the airport. I'm so sorry." The pieces began forming a horrifying picture. Derek had positioned himself as my replacement for the European division months ago. While I was building relationships and closing deals, he was systematically undermining my credibility and stealing my work. Text messages revealed that Derek had flown to New York yesterday to present what he called his European strategy to potential investors. It was my research, my contacts, my 3 years of groundwork repackaged with his name on every slide. Then I discovered the final piece of Derek's calculated betrayal. He had deliberately scheduled this Prague trip during the board's quarterly review, knowing it would give him the perfect opportunity to steal credit for my work while I was trapped overseas and unable to defend myself. The $12 million contract I had just signed would be presented as his achievement, securing his promotion to vice president, while I was painted as an unstable liability who needed to be eliminated. I sat on the hotel bed, staring at my phone, feeling the full weight of Derek's methodical destruction of everything I had worked for. This wasn't a sudden decision or a misunderstanding. It was a carefully orchestrated campaign to steal my career and leave me with nothing. The betrayal felt worse than any romantic heartbreak I had ever experienced because it attacked not just my feelings, but my identity, my future, and my professional reputation that I had spent years building. I made my way down to the hotel lobby, laptop bag slung over my shoulder, trying to project confidence I definitely didn't feel. The ornate Czech architecture that had charmed me just days ago now felt like the walls of an elegant prison. I found a corner table near the windows overlooking Wenceslas Square and opened my laptop, determined to understand the full scope of Derek's systematic assault on my life. My bank account balance glowed mockingly from the screen. $3,400. Under normal circumstances, it would have been enough for a comfortable emergency fund, but last-minute flights from Prague to Chicago were running close to $4,000, and that was before I factored in the hotel bill that was growing by the hour. The rental car I had been using to travel between meetings would require company authorization for the return deposit authorization that no longer existed. Derek had even canceled my return flight, telling the airline that I had decided to extend my stay for personal reasons. The travel insurance company politely informed me that voluntary trip extensions weren't covered under my policy. As I dug deeper into my email, I discovered chains of communication that I had never been included in conversations that revealed Derek's months of careful planning. He had convinced CFO Richard that European expansion was too risky, too expensive, and too dependent on one person's relationships. While publicly supporting my efforts, Derek was secretly meeting with Bohemia Industrial's competitors, gathering intelligence that he claimed was for strategic planning, but was actually designed to undermine my negotiations. Katka, my Prague interpreter, called me with disturbing news. Her English was precise and professional, colored by years of working with international business clients. "Marian, I must tell you something that troubles me greatly. 2 weeks ago, a man calling himself Derek contacted me. He said he was coordinating support for your visit and needed details about your meetings with Bohemia Industrial. He asked many specific questions about your negotiation strategies and the terms you were discussing. I refused to share this information because you had not authorized it, but now I understand his true purpose." The violation felt personal and professional simultaneously. Derek had tried to sabotage my negotiations by gathering intelligence through my own interpreter, someone I trusted to maintain confidentiality. Katka's refusal to cooperate had probably saved the deal, but Derek's willingness to manipulate everyone around me demonstrated the depths of his deception. My professional world was crumbling in real time. LinkedIn showed Derek's profile had been updated overnight to reflect his new title, Vice President of International Development. The company website had removed my biography from the leadership team section as if I had never existed. My work email address bounced back with a user not found error message. Derek had blocked me on all professional social media platforms, cutting off my access to the network I had spent years building. Industry contacts began reaching out their messages, a mixture of confusion and concern. "Marian, we heard some strange rumors about your departure from Pinnacle. What's the real story?" These were people I had worked with for years, relationships built on trust and mutual respect, now tainted by whatever version of events Derek was spreading. My mentor, Professor Williams from Northwestern, left a voicemail that chilled me to the bone. Marian, I received some concerning information about your professional conduct. I think we should talk when you're back in the States. There may be some reputation damage we need to address. Even my personal life wasn't safe from Derek's reach. My best friend Jessica in Chicago wouldn't answer my calls. When I finally reached her, her voice was cold and distant. Marian, I don't know what's going on with you, but Derek called me yesterday. He's really worried about you. He said you've been acting strangely for weeks, and that your behavior in Prague has been unprofessional and erratic. Maybe you should talk to someone when you get home. The line went dead before I could explain. My apartment building manager called about next month's rent payment. Derek had somehow convinced him that I was facing financial difficulties and might default on my lease. The building's corporate office had received an official-looking document claiming that I was under investigation for financial impropriety and that my income was no longer stable. Then Viktor Novak, CEO of Bohemia Industrial, called with information that made my blood run cold. His English carried the authority of someone accustomed to international negotiations, but his tone was puzzled and concerned. Marian, I received a very strange call this morning from your colleague Derek. He claimed that you were mentally unstable and that Pinnacle Systems wanted to reconsider our partnership. He suggested that yesterday's contract signing might not be valid because you were not authorized to represent your company. This is very confusing to me because you seemed perfectly professional and competent throughout our negotiations. Your presentation was excellent, your terms were fair, and your knowledge of our industry was impressive. Can you explain what is happening? Derek wasn't content to simply destroy my current position. He was systematically attacking my reputation across 2 continents, trying to ensure that I would never be able to recover professionally. The contract I had worked so hard to secure, the culmination of months of relationship building and strategic planning, was now under threat because Derek was painting me as unstable and unauthorized. I ended the call with Victor feeling like I was drowning in quicksand. Every move I made seemed to pull me deeper into Derek's carefully constructed trap. He had isolated me from my support network, destroyed my financial stability, and was now attacking the very deal that should have been my greatest professional triumph. The elegance of his plan was terrifying. While I was focused on building success, he was methodically laying the groundwork for my complete destruction. I retreated to my hotel room, unable to face the concerned looks from the lobby staff who were beginning to treat me with the careful politeness reserved for guests who might be unable to pay their bills. The room that had felt luxurious just days ago now felt like a cell. I locked the door behind me and slumped against it, finally allowing myself to feel the full weight of what Derek had done to me. The systematic destruction of my life was more comprehensive than I had initially realized. Derek had called my Chicago apartment complex, speaking to the management company, and claiming that I had abandoned my lease and fled to Europe to avoid financial obligations. My credit card companies had received fraud alerts about my European charges, triggering investigations that would freeze my accounts for weeks. The Illinois State Bar had received a complaint claiming that I was practicing law without a license by negotiating international contracts, despite the fact that I had never claimed to be an attorney, and all my work was clearly identified as business development. Derek's reach extended into areas I never imagined he could access. My professional references, carefully cultivated relationships with former professors and industry colleagues, had been contacted with detailed reports of my alleged erratic behavior and poor judgment. The professional mentorship program I participated in through Northwestern had suspended my membership pending investigation of ethics concerns. My University Alumni Association had flagged my profile after receiving what they described as credible reports of professional misconduct. The invasion of my personal life was equally devastating and inexplicable. My dating profiles had been reported for false information, causing the platforms to suspend my accounts. Someone had gained access to my personal social media accounts and posted bizarre, rambling messages that made me appear unstable and unprofessional. My elderly parents in Michigan had received a call from someone claiming to be a concerned colleague, telling them that I was in serious trouble overseas and might need psychiatric help. My neighbors in Chicago had been told that I was under federal investigation for fraud. Even my gym membership had been mysteriously canceled, with the facility claiming they had received notification that I was relocating permanently. My Netflix account had been compromised with the password changed and the viewing history replaced with documentaries about mental illness and addiction. The violations felt personal and cruel, designed not just to destroy my career but to make me question my own sanity. The hotel staff had begun treating me with polite suspicion after Derek's assistant Stephanie called them directly expressing concern about my mental state and suggesting that I might not be able to pay my bills. Katka apologized profusely, but explained that she could no longer work with me after receiving threatening legal correspondence about her potential liability for enabling unauthorized business activities. The rental car company demanded immediate return of their vehicle due to what they described as payment irregularities and insurance concerns. The Prague conference organizers, who had praised my presentation just yesterday, called to inform me that they had received a formal complaint about my disruptive behavior and unprofessional conduct. Other conference attendees who had exchanged business cards with me were now avoiding eye contact in the hotel corridors, having been contacted with warnings about my alleged instability. I found myself sitting on the hotel room floor, back against the bed, counting my remaining cash over and over like a meditation, $732 in various currencies. Enough for 3 more days at most, and that was without food or transportation. No flight home, no job waiting for me, even if I could get there, and a reputation so thoroughly destroyed that rebuilding seemed impossible. The isolation was the worst part. Derek's campaign had been so thorough that I couldn't trust anyone to give me objective advice or support. Every person I might normally turn to had been poisoned against me with carefully crafted lies that mixed just enough truth to be believable. I was completely alone in a foreign country, stripped of every resource and support system I had spent years building. I thought about calling my parents for money, but Derek's preemptive strike had probably made that impossible too. They were in their 70s, living on a fixed income, and the idea of their daughter begging for money while supposedly under investigation for fraud would devastate them. The thought of their disappointment and fear was almost worse than my own situation. For the first time since this nightmare began, I allowed myself to cry. Not the angry tears of betrayal, but the deep, hopeless sobs of someone who sees no way forward. I had worked so hard to build a life I was proud of, and Derek had dismantled it piece by piece while I was focused on doing my job well. The unfairness of it was overwhelming. Then my phone rang with a video call from Brad, a young analyst Derek had hired to replace me at a fraction of my salary. Brad looked uncomfortable and kept glancing off camera, as if someone was coaching him. "Marion, I'm really sorry about this, but Derek asked me to call you. He wants you to know that we're going to have to contact Bohemia Industrial and explain that their contract was signed by an unauthorized representative. Derek says we need to renegotiate the whole deal because you didn't have the authority to commit the company to those terms." The final piece of Derek's plan clicked into place with sickening clarity. He wasn't just stealing my work. He was planning to renegotiate my contract at a much lower value, keeping the difference as a cost savings bonus, while simultaneously destroying the deal that should have launched Pinnacle Systems' European expansion. Derek was willing to damage his own company's reputation and lose millions in revenue just to ensure that I received no credit for my work and that his version of events appeared justified. As I hung up the phone, something shifted inside me. The despair was still there, but underneath it, a different feeling was growing. Derek had made one crucial mistake in his elaborate plan. He had underestimated me. I stared at my phone after Brad's call, my mind suddenly clear for the first time in days. The fog of shock and betrayal was lifting, replaced by the analytical thinking that had gotten me through business school and built my career. Derek's plan wasn't just unethical. It was illegal on multiple levels, and his systematic destruction of my reputation constituted harassment and defamation that crossed international borders. The international nature of his fraud made it a federal crime. Derek was manipulating contracts between American and Czech companies, using wire communications to commit fraud across international boundaries and attempting to bribe foreign business contacts. My business law classes at Northwestern came flooding back, particularly the sections on corporate malfeasance, international business crimes, and whistleblower protections. I opened my laptop and began documenting everything with the systematic approach I had used for my most complex business analyses. I created detailed spreadsheets with timestamps, email, metadata, and cross-referenced witness statements. Every conversation, every email, every social media interaction was cataloged and categorized. I took screenshots of Derek's LinkedIn updates, saved copies of all his threatening communications, and documented the timeline of his systematic campaign. Then I remembered something crucial. As part of setting up Pinnacle Systems' international operations, I had implemented a comprehensive cloud backup system that automatically saved all company communications to a secure server. The system was designed to protect against data loss and ensure compliance with international record-keeping requirements. Derek knew about the primary company email system, but he didn't know about the backup server that I had established with our IT department. I logged into the secure backup system and found a treasure trove of evidence. Every email Derek had sent about his plan to undermine me was preserved, including communications he thought he had deleted. His coordination with various contacts to spread lies about my reputation was documented in detail. Most damaging of all, I found email chains where Derek discussed his plan to personally profit from renegotiating my contracts at lower values. Victor Novak answered my return call immediately, his voice warm with concern. "Marion, I am very glad you called. This situation with your colleague Derek becomes more troubling by the hour. After our conversation, I discussed his claims with my legal team, and they identified several red flags that concern us greatly." Victor explained that Derek had demanded what amounted to kickbacks for the contract renegotiation, suggesting that Bohemia Industrial could secure better terms by making additional payments to him personally. Czech business law had strict protections against exactly this type of contract manipulation, and Derek's actions were illegal under European Union commercial regulations. "Our security cameras recorded your entire contract signing ceremony," Victor continued. "Our legal team documented every detail of your professional authorized negotiations. We have written verification from your company's legal department approving the contract terms. Derek's claim that you were an unauthorized representative is provably false, and we have the documentation to prove it." My phone started ringing with calls from people I hadn't heard from in days. Katka called back, apologizing profusely for her earlier rejection. "Marion, I must tell you something that makes me very angry. After I refused to work with you, Derek called me again. He offered me $5,000 American dollars to sign a statement saying that you behaved unprofessionally during our meetings. He wanted me to claim that you were intoxicated, that you made inappropriate advances toward Victor, and that you tried to bribe me to lie about contract terms. Of course I refused, but now I understand how serious his campaign against you really is." Other Prague conference attendees began reaching out privately, expressing their suspicions about Derek's sudden appearance and his claims about my behavior. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a Harvard Business School professor who had attended my presentation, called to offer her support. "Marion, that presentation you gave on international market penetration was brilliant. When this Derek person contacted me claiming you had plagiarized your research, I knew immediately that he was lying. Your analysis was too sophisticated and original to be stolen work." The hotel management situation improved dramatically when Victor personally vouched for my credibility and Bohemia Industrial agreed to guarantee my hotel charges. Jindrik, the hotel manager, was embarrassed by how they had treated me and offered to extend my stay at no additional cost while I resolved the situation. Professor Williams called back from Northwestern, his voice filled with regret. "Marion, I owe you a sincere apology. After thinking about Derek's claims more carefully, I realized how inconsistent they were with everything I know about your character and abilities. I've been in this business for 30 years, and I should have recognized a character assassination when I heard one. I'd like to help you fight this in any way I can." Amanda from Pinnacle Systems secretly provided me with additional evidence of Derek's planning that she had discovered in the company's shared drive system. Marion Derek created a folder called Marion Transition Plan 6 months ago. It contains detailed timelines for taking over your responsibilities, your client contact information, and even drafts of the emails he sent to destroy your reputation. He's been planning this since last winter. The most crucial discovery came when I accessed the company's legal database. Derek had made the mistake of using his corporate email account to coordinate his fraud scheme, assuming that my termination meant I no longer had access to the system. However, the backup server I had established saved all communications automatically, regardless of user access levels. I had documented proof of every lie Derek had told every contact he had made to destroy my reputation and every step of his plan to steal my work. Derek's own words proved his criminal intent. He had written detailed emails to co-conspirators explaining how to manipulate my reputation, how to isolate me financially, and how to position himself as my replacement. He had left a digital trail across 2 countries that documented his systematic campaign to commit fraud, defamation, and international business crimes. I felt my strength returning as I realized the scope of evidence I had gathered. Derek had been so confident in his plan that he had documented everything, creating an unassailable case against himself. The victim he thought he had created was about to become the prosecutor who would destroy him. I woke up the next morning energized with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt since Derek's first devastating email. I had spent the previous evening contacting Sarah Chen, an international business attorney I remembered from Northwestern's alumni network, and her response had been immediate and encouraging. "Marion, based on what you've described, Derek's actions constitute multiple federal crimes," Sarah explained during our secure video call. "Wire fraud, defamation with intent to damage business relationships, corporate sabotage, and international commercial fraud. The fact that this crosses international boundaries makes it FBI jurisdiction, not just local police. The evidence you've compiled is extraordinary. Most fraud cases take months to build this level of documentation." Sarah confirmed that my Bohemia industrial contract included specific clauses I had insisted on during negotiations that protected against exactly this type of fraud. The international arbitration provisions I had negotiated would allow us to pursue Derek in both American and Czech courts simultaneously. "Your business instincts were excellent," Sarah told me. "These protective clauses will make this case much stronger." Czech authorities were also interested in Derek's attempted bribery of local business partners, which violated European Union commercial regulations. Victor had already contacted Prague's Commercial Crimes Unit, and they were preparing to issue an international alert about Derek's fraudulent activities. I spent the morning compiling a comprehensive evidence package that would have made my Northwestern professors proud. The documentation included email metadata proving Derek's systematic lies, financial records that contradicted his claims about unauthorized expenses, and security footage from the Prague Conference Center that showed my professional conduct throughout the event. The backup server data was the smoking gun that would destroy Derek's credibility completely. Bank records showed Derek's attempts to personally profit from contract renegotiation, including offshore account transfers that suggested this wasn't his first fraud scheme. International phone records proved his harassment campaign, with calls to dozens of my contacts spread across multiple time zones in a coordinated effort to destroy my reputation. My strategic communications plan was methodical and devastating. I contacted Pinnacle Systems' board of directors, directly bypassing Derek entirely, and sent the complete evidence package to CEO Margaret Thompson via encrypted email. The subject line was simple: urgent evidence of employee fraud and international business crimes. I filed complaints with multiple government agencies simultaneously. The Securities and Exchange Commission needed to know about potential investor fraud, since Derek was misrepresenting company assets and capabilities to financial partners. The Department of Labor required notification of illegal termination and overseas abandonment, which violated multiple federal employment protection laws. The Better Business Bureau complaint documented international business fraud that could damage America's commercial reputation abroad. The Illinois Attorney General's office was particularly interested in the interstate components of Derek's crimes. His use of communication networks across state lines to commit defamation and fraud elevated the charges to felony level. The systematic nature of his campaign suggested pattern behavior that might involve other victims. My allies emerged from unexpected places. Victor Novak provided a detailed letter confirming my professionalism and documenting Derek's attempted bribery, complete with recorded phone conversations and official Bohemia industrial letterhead. The Czech CEO offered to fly me home on the company's corporate jet and cover all my Prague hotel costs as a gesture of support for ethical business practices. Other European contacts revealed that Derek had approached them with similar fraudulent schemes over the past months, trying to undermine existing business relationships by claiming that American partners were unreliable. The pattern of behavior stretched across multiple countries and companies, suggesting that Derek had been running fraud schemes for much longer than anyone realized. The Prague conference organizers provided written testimony about my exemplary conduct, along with video footage of my presentation and professional interactions with other attendees. Dr. Martinez from Harvard volunteered to serve as a character witness and provide expert testimony about the quality and originality of my research. Hotel management apologized for their treatment of me and offered to provide detailed documentation of Derek's harassment calls, which had included false claims about my mental health and financial stability. Jindrak kept detailed records of every conversation, and his contemporaneous notes would serve as additional evidence of Derek's systematic campaign. Katka agreed to testify about Derek's attempted bribery and his requests for false statements about my behavior. Her interpreter's license and reputation for integrity made her testimony particularly valuable, and her documentation of Derek's offers to pay for false statements provided additional evidence of his criminal intent. Then Amanda called with urgent news that changed everything. Marion Derek is panicking. He tried to access the contract database remotely this morning, probably to delete evidence, but his attempts triggered the company's security protocols. I automatically notified senior management about the unauthorized access attempts. Margaret Thompson personally reviewed the access logs and discovered that Derek has been illegally accessing your files for months, including copying proprietary information to personal devices. The board had called an emergency meeting for this afternoon, and Derek had no idea that he was walking into a trap. He was expecting to receive his promotion to vice president and celebrate the successful elimination of his competition. Instead, he would be confronted with evidence of criminal behavior and law enforcement officers waiting with subpoenas. I felt powerful and in control for the first time since this nightmare began. Derek's arrogance had led him to document everything, creating an unassailable case against himself. His systematic approach to destroying my life had become the roadmap for his own destruction, and I was finally ready to watch justice unfold. Amanda's updates from Chicago arrived every few minutes as the board meeting unfolded at Pinnacle Systems headquarters. I sat in my Prague hotel room 3,000 miles away, watching Derek's world collapse in real time through her carefully coded text messages. CEO Margaret Thompson had arrived early to the conference room with a stack of evidence that could have filled a small library. Derek walked in confidently at exactly 9 a.m. Chicago time, wearing his best suit and carrying the presentation materials that would supposedly secure his promotion to vice president. Instead, he found FBI financial crimes investigators waiting with subpoenas and a formal criminal complaint. The look on his face was pure shock, Amanda texted. He kept saying there must be some mistake, that he was here for a promotion meeting. Margaret just slid the evidence folder across the table and told him to start explaining. CFO Richard, who had been Derek's strongest ally in undermining my credibility, immediately distanced himself when confronted with documented proof of Derek's fraud. The emails Derek had sent to Richard contained outright lies about my performance, fabricated expense reports, and falsified client feedback. Richard's face went pale as he realized how thoroughly Derek had manipulated him into supporting the campaign against me. Derek's company laptop revealed months of planning with detailed folders containing my stolen research, forged authorization documents, and draft emails to destroy my reputation. His personal phone seized as evidence contained text messages about bribing European contacts and coordinating lies about my professional conduct with multiple conspirators. Security camera footage from Pinnacle Systems offices showed Derek accessing my workspace after hours photographing confidential documents and copying proprietary research to personal storage devices. The IT department had flagged dozens of unauthorized file transfers to Derek's personal email accounts transfers that occurred during evenings and weekends when he thought no one was monitoring the system. The immediate consequences were swift and devastating. Derek's termination was announced before the meeting ended, with security officers escorting him from the building while federal agents cataloged evidence from his office. His company credit cards were frozen instantly, his bank accounts flagged for federal investigation, and his professional certification suspended pending the outcome of criminal charges. LinkedIn and other professional networking platforms flagged Derek's profiles for fraudulent information after receiving reports from Pinnacle Systems' legal department. His apartment lease application, submitted just last week as he prepared to move into a luxury Chicago high-rise, was rejected when background checks revealed the federal investigation. The most unexpected development came when Derek's wife, Jennifer, called me directly from Chicago. Her voice was shaky but determined as she apologized for her husband's behavior and offered to cooperate fully with law enforcement. "Marion, I found things in Derek's home office that terrified me. He has files on dozens of people he's targeted over the years. You weren't his first victim, and you probably wouldn't have been his last if you hadn't fought back. I'll testify against him if it helps your case." Pinnacle Systems' corporate response exceeded anything I could have imagined. Margaret Thompson personally called me to offer a formal apology and immediate reinstatement with a promotion to VP International Development, the exact position Derek had tried to steal. "Marion, your courage in exposing Derek's fraud probably saved our entire company. The board is unanimous in wanting you to lead our international expansion, and we're prepared to offer you a significant salary increase and signing bonus to demonstrate our commitment to making this right." The company's legal department offered full support for my criminal case against Derek, including paying all my legal fees and providing corporate attorneys to assist with both the federal prosecution and my civil lawsuit. Their public relations team was preparing a statement that would restore my professional reputation and publicly acknowledge my role in exposing corporate fraud. International ramifications were developing rapidly. Czech authorities had issued a warrant for Derek's arrest if he attempted to enter the European Union, and Interpol was coordinating with American law enforcement to track his financial activities across international borders. Viktor Novak confirmed that the Bohemia industrial contract remained fully valid and that his company wanted to continue working exclusively with me on all American partnership matters. The Prague conference organizers invited me to serve as next year's keynote speaker on international business ethics, and the European business press was covering my story as an example of how individual courage could triumph over corporate corruption. Victor had offered me a consulting position with Bohemia Industrial's American expansion, providing another career opportunity beyond my Pinnacle Systems role. Then the FBI investigation revealed the true scope of Derek's criminal enterprise. His fraud scheme extended far beyond my case, involving systematic theft of intellectual property from multiple Pinnacle Systems employees over at least 2 years. Derek had been selling trade secrets to competitors through offshore shell companies, generating hundreds of thousands in illegal profits while undermining his own company's competitive position. My decision to fight back hadn't just saved my career, it had exposed a criminal conspiracy that was destroying Pinnacle Systems from within. Other employees came forward with evidence of Derek's manipulation, revealing a pattern of behavior that included sexual harassment, financial fraud, and systematic theft of credit for others' work. Derek faced not just termination and local charges, but federal racketeering charges that could result in 20 years in prison. The money laundering components of his offshore schemes added additional federal crimes, and the international scope of his fraud opened possibilities for prosecution under organized crime statutes. As I sat in my Prague hotel room watching the updates pour in from Chicago, I felt the deep satisfaction of justice being served. Derek's elaborate plan to destroy my life had instead revealed his own criminal nature to law enforcement, his employers, and his professional community. The evidence he had created to frame me had become the foundation for federal charges against him. The audience of this story was experiencing the cathartic release I felt as Derek's world collapsed around him. His systematic cruelty had been matched by equally systematic justice, and his confident arrogance had been replaced by federal handcuffs and a ruined reputation. This was what happens when victims fight back with intelligence, persistence, and unshakable commitment to truth. 2 weeks later, I sat in my new corner office at Pinnacle Systems, 20 floors above Lake Michigan, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and crimson. The view was spectacular, but what filled me with the deepest satisfaction wasn't the luxurious surroundings. It was the knowledge that justice had been served and that my fight had created positive change that would protect others. Derek's legal resolution had been swift, once faced with overwhelming evidence. His attorneys advised him to plead guilty to avoid a lengthy trial that would only increase his sentence. He received 8 years in federal prison for wire fraud, racketeering, and international commercial crimes with requirements to pay full restitution, covering my lost wages, legal fees, emotional damages, and reputation repair costs. His professional licenses were permanently revoked across all 50 states, ensuring he could never again hold positions of trust in corporate America. The civil lawsuit settlement provided additional compensation that would secure my financial future while sending a clear message that corporate fraud carries severe personal consequences. Czech authorities pursued separate charges for attempted bribery and fraud under European Union commercial law. Viktor Novak told me that Derek's name had been added to international business watch lists that would prevent him from engaging in commercial activities across the European Union for the rest of his life. The FBI used Derek's case to establish new protocols for investigating international business crime, recognizing that global commerce required updated law enforcement approaches. My evidence-gathering methods were studied and incorporated into federal training programs for investigating corporate fraud schemes that cross international boundaries. My promotion to VP International Development had made me the youngest executive in Pinnacle Systems history, but more importantly, it represented vindication of everything I had worked to build. The Bohemia Industrial Contract became the foundation for European expansion that generated over $50 million in first-year revenue, validating every strategic decision I had made during those difficult months of negotiations. Under my leadership, the international team grew from just me to 12 specialists, covering markets across Europe, Asia, and South America. Within 6 months, we completed 3 major European acquisitions that positioned Pinnacle Systems as a global leader in our industry. The Harvard Business School invited me as a guest lecturer on International Business Ethics, and Industry Week named me International Business Executive of the Year. My personal healing had been as important as my professional recovery. Therapy helped me process the trauma of Derek's betrayal while developing stronger boundaries and better skills for recognizing manipulation. I learned to trust my instincts more completely and to advocate for myself without apology or hesitation. My dating life improved dramatically as I became attracted to people who valued integrity over ambition, authenticity over image. The relationships I built were deeper and more honest because I had learned to recognize the difference between genuine support and calculating manipulation. The relationship with my parents actually strengthened after they learned the truth about Derek's deception. They were proud of how I had fought back, and my father told me that watching me handle the crisis had taught him important lessons about persistence and courage. My mother framed the newspaper article about my business ethics award and hung it in their living room. My new apartment in Lincoln Park represented a fresh start, decorated with Czech crystal and artwork from Prague that reminded me of my strength during the darkest period of my life. My friendship with Katka continued through weekly video calls, and we were planning a vacation together where she would show me parts of Czech Republic that tourists never see. The ripple effects of my story continued expanding in ways I hadn't anticipated. Other Pinnacle Systems employees felt empowered to report workplace misconduct without fear, knowing that the company now had zero tolerance for retaliation. 3 additional fraud schemes were uncovered and reported to authorities, creating a culture of transparency and accountability. The company implemented new whistleblower protections and ethical oversight procedures that became models for other corporations. I was invited to speak at industry conferences about recognizing and preventing workplace fraud, sharing my experience to help others identify manipulation and respond effectively. Northwestern University created a scholarship in my name for students studying international business ethics, ensuring that future leaders would understand the importance of integrity in global commerce. The Czech Ministry of Commerce established an annual award recognizing ethical American business partnerships, with Viktor Novak serving as the first selection committee chairman. My mentorship of young professionals became one of my most rewarding activities. I taught them to recognize manipulation tactics, set appropriate boundaries, and respond to workplace bullying with strategic intelligence rather than emotional reactions. Several of the people I mentored successfully exposed misconduct in their own organizations, creating positive change that extended far beyond my personal experience. The life lesson that emerged from Derek's betrayal was profound and transformative. I realized that his attack on me, while devastating at the time, had ultimately revealed inner strength I didn't know I possessed. I learned that integrity isn't just about personal character. It's about building systems and relationships that protect others from the kind of abuse I had experienced. The experience taught me that justice requires action, not just hope. Waiting for others to recognize injustice or hoping that truth will automatically prevail is naive and ineffective. Real change happens when individuals are willing to fight for what's right, even when the cost seems overwhelming and the odds appear impossible. True success, I discovered, isn't about individual achievement or climbing corporate ladders. It's about creating value for others, building relationships based on mutual respect, and using your position to make positive changes that benefit everyone. Professional relationships built on these principles prove far more valuable and sustainable than any individual accomplishment. Most importantly, I learned that my worth isn't determined by other people's validation or recognition. Derek's ability to temporarily damage my reputation didn't diminish the quality of my work, the depth of my knowledge, or the strength of my character. External validation is pleasant, but it cannot be the foundation of self-confidence or professional identity. This morning, I received a thank you card from Sarah, a young analyst at Pinnacle Systems, who had felt empowered to report sexual harassment after hearing about my experience. Her note was simple but powerful. "You showed me that fighting back isn't just possible, it's necessary. Thank you for proving that victims can become victors when they refuse to accept injustice." I smiled as I read her words, thinking about that Prague hotel room where I had felt so powerless just months earlier. Derek's betrayal had felt like the end of everything I had worked for, but it actually became the beginning of a stronger, more authentic version of myself. Sometimes our greatest challenges become our most important opportunities for growth, courage, and positive change. Looking out at Lake Michigan, I realized that my story had become larger than my personal experience. It was proof that individuals can fight powerful systems and win when they combine courage with intelligence, persistence with strategy, and personal healing with commitment to protecting others. Have you ever faced a situation where someone tried to destroy your reputation or steal credit for your work? How did you respond, and what would you do differently if you faced similar challenges today? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below, because sharing our experiences helps all of us recognize manipulation and respond more effectively. If this story inspired you to think differently about workplace justice or personal empowerment, please like this video to help others find it. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about people who refused to accept injustice and fought back to create positive change. And please share this with anyone who might benefit from knowing that victims can become victors when they refuse to give up. Thank you for listening to my story and for supporting content that celebrates courage, integrity, and the power of fighting back against injustice. I hope my experience helps you recognize your own strength and inspires you to never accept mistreatment from people who think they can destroy others without consequences.